Interesting survey research work by our next guest, Ivana Greco, and her colleague on stay-at-home parents. Recently, they conducted a survey of almost 1,500 stay-at-home parents to ask them who they were, what challenges they faced, what help they wanted and needed. Also ran a series of focus groups with different cohorts of stay-at-home parents in North Carolina. The results are interesting. I mean, one of them, maybe, I don't know, do people really think this way? Does sort of TV completely distorted their reality of certain things like stay-at-home families? If you watch the Real Housewives shows, writes Ivana Greco, you might think that stay-at-home parents are mainly rich moms who spend all their time wasting money and creating drama. Or if you meander about downtown Hinsdale, you might think that too. But most families with stay-at-home parents aren't rich. Instead, they're hardworking families that still struggle to balance the family budget. Many are people of color. Many family with a stay-at-home parent now have the dad at home instead of mom. Don't get me started on that.
Well, it happens. The mom has a higher paying job than, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we have two of them in our neighborhood, and I like our stay-at-home dads.
Uh-huh.
We do coffee and yoga.
It's not emasculating at all.
Not
no,
at
I know.
all. I mean,
no, it's not. Yeah, everybody puts on their Lululemon stretch pants and goes out for coffee. I got it.
I know.
All right, I know that's me being a Philistine and an ogre. I know. Anyway, for more on this, since I'm the product of a stay-at-home mom, and dad too. Dad gets some credit, but mainly mom. Usually the case. Ivana Greco is a homemaker and homeschooling mom of 3, homeschools too, from Connecticut, who writes on the issues impacting stay-at-home moms and dads. Her Substack is entitled The Homefront. The Homefront.substack.com is where you can get her writings and, as I mentioned, research. Ivana Greco, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
So give us more color from your research on how we should be conceiving families with a stay-at-home parent today, as, maybe compared to 30 years ago when I was growing up, or as maybe how we misunderstand stay-at-home parents because of culture like the Real Housewives.
Sure, definitely. So one thing that is really interesting about stay-at-home parents today is a lot of them actually work a little bit. People may be, like myself, homeschooling. I actually have 4 kids now. Homeschooling their kids. Their kids are not in school, or they're not in daycare or any form of outside childcare. But they still do work a little bit. Like some people give piano lessons. Some people work after the kids are in bed at night. I talked to one woman who is a nurse who works overnight shifts. And then her husband lets her sleep in the morning, and then she cares for her kids during the day. So families that have decided to care for their kids at home rather than sending them outside of the home have a lot of different ways they organize their lives, these ways to care for their kids the way that they want to, but still make enough money to try to balance the family budget. Because as you mentioned, these are mainly not rich people. These are really hardworking people who are trying to care for their kids the best way they know how.
Well, it's particularly folding in and by the way, congratulations on your 4th child. But the particularly folding in the homeschooling piece of it. What I hear from homeschooling families mainly is, I want the government to leave me alone. I'm afraid to get the government too involved in my life because I don't want them to intrude on my education of my children. But you suggest from your survey research and thinking about these issues that there are perhaps government policies that could be more friendly to stay-at-home parents.
That's right, yeah. So I think one important thing to understand about stay-at-home parents is we don't think of them as productive members of society, or some parts of news media sort of paint them as like, oh, they're not contributing to the GDP. So what value do they have? And I could not disagree with that more. I think moms, and as you know, sometimes dads these days at home, are incredibly useful to the larger society. They raise kids. They take care of the elderly. And so I think in some ways we really owe them a debt. And so when we talk to parents about the kind of support that they're looking for, it really is stuff that just ordinary people struggle with also. One big thing is the child tax credit, which is sort of coming up for debate in D.C. right now. People who are stay-at-home parents are looking for that to be maintained or possibly expanded. Stay-at-home parents are often the people in this country that are having the kids. So there's discussion in D.C. right now about baby bonuses, like that families could get a tax credit around the time they have a child being born to give some help with the extra expenses we all face when a new baby arrives in the house. So these are the kinds of things that I would really like government policymakers, politicians to think about when they're thinking about the tax bill.
Well, what about getting a tax credit for homeschooling? I mean, you're paying taxes for your kids to go to public schools, and they're being homeschooled.
Yeah, so I mean, as a homeschooler myself, I'd be totally thrilled to get such a credit. You know, not all stay-at-home parents, I should say, are homeschoolers, but that is exactly the kind of creative thinking that would really help these families who, again, really are, kind of essential infrastructure, I would argue, in the United States.
And, there's, I don't know. It's just one of those things with government where you get concerned about, benefits come with strings from the government. And to me, you worry about the government using those opportunities, depending on who's in charge, once those programs are in place, to insinuate themselves even more into the family and between parents and kids, as we've seen the government have a penchant to do on a variety of issues.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, what I would say with stay-at-home parents is we already do give a lot of public funding to families that have two working parents. There's a lot of funding out there for different kinds of preschool, for different kinds of daycares, tax credits available for people who have both parents in the workforce. And what I would like policymakers to do is to make it fair. If they're going to be subsidizing having two parents in the workforce, I think they should also give thought to families that have decided to have a kid at home, so that families really feel enabled to make the choice that they're comfortable with, whether it comes to putting the kid in daycare or having their baby at home. I want families in America to feel like they have the option rather than that they're being slotted into one route.
What's your perspective on the sort of stigma, to the extent there is one, on stay-at-home moms, in particular in the sort of post-third wave feminism era?
Yeah, so I experienced that myself. I was a lawyer for about a decade before I started staying home with my kids. And I can tell you personally, people just do not treat you the same way at dinner parties when you introduce yourself as a stay-at-home mom versus when I was introducing myself as a lawyer. So I think there's a lot of work.
Don't go to those dinner parties. Why are you going to those things? Why are you putting yourself through it?
Well, we still love our friends and our neighbors and our community, but people certainly that they don't treat you the same. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I think policymakers actually could help just by saying, look, stay-at-home moms are valuable members of society. There's all this emphasis right now on, getting women to the highest rung of academia and law firms and corporations, and I should say I'm all for that. I think that stuff is all great, but I want also there to be respect for the women who are taking care of little kids at home, because they're also doing a really important job.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy. I mean, as a homeschooler and as a stay-at-home mom, what are your biggest challenges?
Well, I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, an almost 2-year-old, and a 4-week-old baby. So,
oh my gosh!
Say
no more.
That's enough. But I think the big thing is, like everybody else, we think about our budget, we think about housing costs, we think about healthcare costs, because we did take a big hit when I dropped out of the workforce. I was making more money than my husband, and we're lucky that he has a stable, good-paying job. But there's a lot of concerns that go along with that, and many families are facing much tighter financial squeezes than we are. And I talked to a mother of 7. And this woman, God bless her, she's doing amazing work. She's raising 7 kids. But she, like, every month she's trying to plot out how to afford groceries for these kids, some of whom are now teenage boys. And, you know, they're really struggling, and they could use a hand. And, you know, they're a married couple. Her husband works full time. He's doing his best. But they definitely could use a little help.
Yeah, I just wonder what your reaction was to all the contretemps, as it were, during the campaign with J.D. Vance and the childless cat lady's comment. And, I mean, you know, stipulating that maybe that's not the best angle into the larger conversation, but it did get to a conversation about people having family and what women want ultimately. And, I mean, this has been going on for, of course, a long time. In terms of sort of the argument about, yes, you can have it all, but maybe not at the same time. It's that sort of thing, like Erica Komisar writes about. And I just wonder how you think that maybe what happened during the campaign will drive a better understanding generally of family and stay-at-home parenting, you know, in the coming months and years ahead.
I really hope so. I mean, I thought Senator Vance, now Vice President Vance, did a wonderful job during the vice presidential debate where he talked about his wife and how she is an attorney. She's brilliant. She has all these resources at her disposal, but she also really struggled when she had kids, you know, as many women do, to make it all work between job and family life. And how much he wants families to have a choice, to feel good, you know, that whether they're putting their child in outside care with grandma, with a nanny, or caring for their kids at home. He said that he really wants families to feel like they have a choice, and I think that that's just right. That's the message we need from our political leaders, that we're going to make it possible for families to decide what's best for their own kids.
Ivana Greco is a homemaker, a homeschooling mom of four, from Connecticut, who writes on the issues impacting stay-at-home moms and dads. Her Substack, The Homefront, thehomefront.substack.com. Ivana Greco, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
I think one of the things that patients don't realize is that when they get a joint replacement, that's not a lifetime treatment option. And they're probably, if they are a younger patient, signing up for multiple surgeries down the road.
As a physician and medical director for QC Kinetics, Dr. Caravelli's seen a pattern of trending joint pain. Prolonged medication, steroids, then surgery, possibly another surgery.
So a lot of our patients are trying to avoid or put off surgery, and this is the treatment that can help them do that.
QC Kinetics extracts your body's healing substance